We're here. We made it, fellas. This is Between Your Ears number 10. We're in double digits. Something that Jerry Richardson no longer is. Happy trails to the disgraced Carolina Panthers owner who famously had to sell his team for sexual misconduct. He passed away today, which is a not so easy segue into how do we feel about Rashad Bateman calling out Eric DeCosta today? Basically slamming him for saying he did, for the lack of production out of wide receivers.
I mean, you have to be frustrated if you're a fan in Buffalo, if you're a player in Buffalo, or a coach in Buffalo. They're not really used to having seasons like they've been having. They've just kind of been, by hook or by crook, something brings them down, whether it's injuries or underperforming. I think this is, a period of unrest where they had to let Greg Roman go. And it sounds like he blames Greg Roman, which, he's not exactly blameless for what the offense looked like. But, I just think you're hoping that whatever comes out of this is copacetic with Lamar at the end of the day.
Quick editor's note: you said Buffalo, but it was Baltimore. But
I say Buffalo.
You said Buffalo.
Shit.
Greg Roman has been in Buffalo, and he did get run out of there as well.
True. That's true.
I don't read too much into it simply because the Ravens have actually taken quite a bit of receivers over the last few years. They took, I think it started with they took Jaleel Scott, and in the fourth round, like in 2018, then they took what's his name? Was it Michael Clayton or one of those, or Clayton?
George Clooney? George Clooney?
No, there was another one. They made another draft pick back in, I believe, 2018 or 2019.
I remember a few of the guys.
Was a Buccaneers draft
pick. He busted. And then they took Miles Boykin. Sorry,
I was going to say, are you talking about Boykin?
Boykin, there you go. Miles Boykin,
another TCU receiver, baby.
And Miles Boykin, and then they also took Devin Duvernay, and in the third round, and they took. I mean, obviously they had Hollywood and they traded him, and they've also taken Rashad Bateman. And so, like in the last 4 years, I think they've spent 5 top 100 picks on a wide receiver. And they still haven't really found an alpha. So I don't think it was necessarily directed directly at Bateman, but I don't think it makes him feel good at all.
I think the only thing that I take away from it was the Lamar piece, where I think it's another shot in the I don't think Lamar is going to be a Raven next year. And that was the only thing that kind of like stuck out to me in the tweet, where he basically said DeCosta is he insinuated that there's been some blame levied inside the building towards Lamar. That's about all I took from it. It was deleted 40 minutes later. I mean, this shit happens. I mean, AJ, everybody, we've seen other receivers have these moments. I don't think that this is I don't think we're going to see tomorrow Rashad Bateman traded for a 5th round pick.
No.
So we got some pretty fast linemen out of the combine today. I guess fair disclaimer, I'm going to try to not watch the combine. I'm going to try to stay non-polluted. I'm going to see what the effects are come rookie season, whether we're doing rookie drafts or startups or whatever. I want to know what it's like if I just skip the combine, don't watch it, don't do any, and just focus only on film work. See what comes out off of that. Could be a risk. I could lose a lot of money this year in Dynasty. Who knows? But I really think the combine's kind of overrated outside of just kind of like medical checks and getting true accurate gauges on size and weight.
No, I can buy that. I'm probably still gonna tune in if I can. I haven't watched any of it today, but I think it's an interesting event that it helps me sort out some things. I think the only thing I really like to look at it from a fantasy perspective is outside of them just checking boxes for measurables is the running backs going through the gauntlet drill or the pass catching drills. I think that's the only time because you can really see when they have issues trying to gather the ball coming from the quarterbacks. And that's about the only thing. And it's more of a check the box kind of deal. It's not even, oh, that guy looked really, really good. It's like, okay, that guy did it. He's all right. You can really, really see it. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got some dinosaurs running really fast now. And like so my biggest thing with 40 is I think they should be run with pads on. Because I think there's a difference in speed while you have resistance versus you're in literally, I mean, they're basically in nothing. They're in nylon, they're in Under Armour. They literally have no weight. And my biggest thing with that is like, that's not how football is played. Not from the whole like, oh, we don't know how you're going to run a route or how you're going to react to coverage. That's a whole separate argument. But in terms of speed, like I want to see how fast you are with shoulder pads on. I think there is a difference. And I think that would be a more accurate gauge for me.
Absolutely. I think at this point, because it's such a spectacle and because you are looking for those gaudy numbers, those sexy stats, those 40 times, you're going to lose a lot of that intrigue. And the NFL has really tried to push the combine just being a hugely televised event. It's supposed to be like a really big deal. So if you make them do that, it makes all the sense in the world, but it hurts their clicks and their views in the long run. Oh, wow, everybody's really slow this year. And actually on that note, the track in Indianapolis was new last year, and there was an abnormally high number of high 40 times last year too. After one day of running, and it's like the biggest position group out there, or one of the biggest, and they're already, coming in way under 4.8 pretty consistently. It's just something to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also even advocate for them running the 40 out of the stance that they're going to be in for their position. So if you're a defensive end, you need to get yourself in a 3-point stance. If you're a running back, kind of in that squat position. If you're a receiver, a little more stood up. Let's see what they really do when they're really simulating what they're going to be doing on the field.
I like how Jeremiah interjects every few guys that run it and say, well, the 40 doesn't really matter for this guy. It's the 10. You got it. Well, then why are you making him run it? Move on.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
The two dinosaurs that's kind of like stood out today, and I say dinosaurs compassionately because they're literally, this is stuff we've never seen before. That's why I refer to them as dinosaurs, where it's like, we've never seen this. Like, we have a defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, Kalijah Cansey, 6'1", 281, running a 4.67. And we were talking about it pre-show, and JL goes, that's not even the most impressive thing. You got a D end out of Northwestern, and I'm going to attempt his last name, Adebawore. I might have butchered that, but D end out of Northwestern, also weighing 282, running a 4.49. Which I guess the only thing that we can take away from this, from like a fantasy perspective, is does this scare you with Bryce Young, knowing that he is a little slighter of frame, and now you have these monsters coming off the edge now faster than ever. And we don't have to deep dive into BY, but I guess quick, yay or nay, does any of this scare you into slighter build quarterbacks?
No.
I mean, I really don't have a ton of concerns. I mean, the NFL's always been pretty much the same size consistently for, year over year. He's playing against these guys in the SEC, as it pertains to Bryce Young. A huge portion of SEC defensive linemen go on to play pro. You just got to be smart about taking hits. You're not seeking contact. You have to know who you are as a player. You can't be truck sticking people as much fun as that can be. But no, not something that I'm overly concerned about. It's a concern, but not overly.
As you could tell when we asked for a one-word answer, AJ could not help but profess his love for Bryce Young.
That's correct.
He is our Bryce Young truther here.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a couple other kind of like, I don't know, I call these kind of like throwaway stuff. We're gonna forget about this in September, but let's talk about it briefly. Since we have JL on, let's give him the floor. How does he feel about Mike McCarthy? So I have an issue with how like mainstream media is reporting this. They're saying he's slamming Kellen Moore. He's dunking on Kellen Moore. I don't really feel like that's accurate. If you want to like Bikram yoga stretch it in like coach speak terms, it's kind of a slam. I think it's mostly just McCarthy just showed who got scapegoated in that Niners loss. That's what I took away from it.
Well, yeah. So first and foremost, I think this is just that coach speak stuff where guys are like, because the context of what he said was that Kellen Moore likes to light up the scoreboard, and that his focus coming from being a play caller and then being a head coach who didn't have play calling duties, he sees that that he wants to run the ball and win ball games. I want to rest my defense and then be able to win. So it's coach speak, I think, right now, but there's two things. A, there's nothing going on in the news media or the media cycle right now with NFL. So anything Cowboys is going to create clicks. And
the Jerry special.
It is. And that's the other thing. So
Jerry loves it.
And Jerry loves it. If he says it, that's great. So we'll forget about it. But for looking at it from a Cowboys perspective, I really hope it's not, hey, we are going to be taking the ball out of Dak's hands and they are going to be running the ball. I don't mind 30 times a game. It's when you start trying to hit 40s, that's when it's like, oh, well, we got to stick with it. It's like we ran the ball 18 times for 32 yards in the first half. It's just because we didn't stick with it. It's like, no. You got to – that's when it'll be a detriment.
Yeah. No, I think it's just showing McCarthy's age. I mean, this is just like these damn kids with their loud rock music and their spread offenses, and all they want to do is score 35 and be on SportsCenter. That's all he's doing.
Yeah. And the wild thing is that McCarthy got fired from Green Bay because he passed too damn much.
Yep.
He wouldn't run the ball. I mean, don't get me wrong. He also had, Eddie Refrigerator Lacy out there, but
that's Zeke now. I keep telling you that.
That's what?
That's Zeke now. That's Zeke now.
Oh yeah, but Zeke's like 220. He just can't move.
Yeah, that's a listed 220, but you notice how he's not running around with that crop top jersey anymore, right?
It's all that cereal.
That crop top jersey hasn't come out in a while. I just want to let you know.
He took it off not too long ago this past season. He's still got a six-pack. He was actually in better shape, I believe, last year and this year.
You keep selling that. My eyes see something different. I don't see no burst there. You could be in better shape, but that burst is gone.
Oh, yeah, it's gone. That's just hips up, JT. Yeah. That's hips up. He's in better shape, hips up. Waist down.
So the one thing that bothers me about the whole McCarthy thing and why I think it just kind of shows who won the power struggle is what he described as that's his job. You know what I mean? It's his job to tell the OC, run the ball. So why weren't you doing that? Like, it's kind of like you can't be the head coach and assume this level of power and then say, "Oh, I got rid of him because he didn't run the ball enough." Well, you're the head coach. You should have been telling him run the ball. Like that, like we said in the Niners game in our preview of it, I was staunchly in, if the Cowboys can get out to a lead, establish the run, and avoid the turnovers from Dak, they can win that game. If they run the ball instead of having Dak make that ill-advised throw, we could be discussing a whole different thing here. So part of it, I think, is passing the buck a little bit from McCarthy. I really think that he's still on the hot seat, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Dan Quinn take over as the head coach there. It's not often that you see a defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn's position pass on 2 head coaching jobs in 2 cycles. So we'll see where
he was the highest paid coordinator last year, and the rumor is he got another raise.
Yeah, almost made Rex Ryan come back.
Yeah.
And I guess for the last bit of NFL news, kind of making the runaround, is who's not interested in who here? Vegas not interested in Aaron Rodgers, or is Aaron Rodgers not interested in Vegas?
AJ, go first. Which one do you think?
I mean, I've made my feelings on Aaron Rodgers pretty clear that when you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you're bringing on a whole shitstorm that comes with it. And there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of claustrophobia with that because he starts making demands and needs things the way he needs them. And then you have to deal with him on Pat McAfee every day. So if I'm Josh McDaniels and I have, one shot, one opportunity to not be the big coaching bust that could be unfolding before me, I'd rather get somebody that can execute my system that I know the way it can and isn't going to detract from, because we talk about Dallas, but the Raiders can be a pretty big lightning rod when it comes to controversy.
Something about bowl cuts.
No, so I think it's accurate. I don't think. Well, Vic, I think it was Vic Tafur. He's kind of a beat writer from the Las Vegas area. He put out that both McDaniel and the GM of the Raiders kind of spoke, and that the way that they're speaking, it does not appear that Aaron Rodgers would be somebody they want to welcome. McDaniels did mention, it wasn't a direct quote, but about the drama that he would bring, and that just kind of gravity that Aaron Rodgers would bring by being there. Is not something he would look forward to. And it's not really the direction that he's looking at.
Yeah, I think my viewpoint of that is they don't want to deal with Aaron Rodgers based on how upset he would be playing for that with that roster. That would be a significant downgrade from Green Bay, and that's coming from someone who's extremely critical of Green Bay's roster construction. I don't want to have Aaron Rodgers on my team if my roster is that thin. They really only have Devontae and Max Crosby. Those are about their above average. I mean, those are elite players. I don't want to disparage either of them, but this is not a roster that's ready for an Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's easy. I think it's easy to just kind of say, "Oh, we don't want to deal with that circus," or "We don't want to deal with that." That's BS. Much like when Tom Brady became available, there's 16 available quarterback jobs. On his own, there are nearly every team that would be interested in Aaron Rodgers. The problem is they don't have the means to construct a roster that's ready for a Super Bowl title, and that's all Aaron Rodgers is playing for right now. I think it's more so their roster doesn't allow them to get an Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't make any sense for them. Also, much to like what AJ said, let's say they get Rodgers, it blows up in year one, McDaniels is gone. If he gets a rookie QB, he gets a little bit longer of a leash.
Yeah. To be fair, and I think AJ mentioned this, I'm not sure any roster is ready for Aaron Rodgers. His cap hit and what you're even if you have to give up, say, a second round pick, it's still a heavy price to pay. That's it. It's really in today's NFL. That's a starter.
He's a $16 million cap hit for whoever trades for him.
How much?
16 million.
Oh, it's only 16 if he gets traded.
The cap hit to the new team, and we're talking about salary cap gymnastics here. So I read in The Athletic, they had a whole breakdown of it. 16 million goes to the new team. They still have to pay him $120 million, but he would only be a $16 million cap hit based on what I read.
Okay, so that changes the math. So maybe that's potential. I was thinking
again, it comes down to, like, if you're the Jets, I've been on the record here saying I'm not trading the number 13 overall pick for him. That's to me, that's roster suicide. But going back to the original question, I think it's Rodgers that's not interested in Vegas, in my opinion. But let's get to the trades. Yeah, let's get to the meat
stuff.
Quite a flurry. Combine's gotten us feeling loose.
Is it still meat and potatoes, or is it eggs and potatoes now? Because eggs now cost more than ground beef. Anyone want to start with any of these jump out to you? And I'm gonna post these in the comments for us to follow along here. I think the biggest. Let's start with the one that we've seen the most frequently, and the most frequent one we've seen is there. It is. Throw that one up there. This is the one that I've now seen it 3 times. It's Kyler Murray for the rookie 101, which we know is Bijan Robinson. And these are full PPR Superflex. One of them was start 9. The other 2 were start 10s. So not too much variation there. Kind of the same across the board. Anyone want to argue the Kyler side?
Okay. I'm not going to say that I would pick Kyler. I'll take Bijan.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand it if the 101 was your pick. You're the original owner of the 101. I can understand it from the standpoint that Kyler only helps your tank to get the 101 and 24.
Right. Yep.
That's where I guess some of the additional maybe baked in value into getting Kyler is. Now I'd be super worried about his future.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's the only thing I can see from a logic standpoint where it's, hey, yeah, I'm getting Kyler. He was a mid to late first round startup pick last year. Maybe he's not ready for me in 23, but if he's ready for me in 24, and I'm really more of in a 2 to 3 year rebuild, I need that. I need to help ensure my assets there. I don't think right now's the time to make that trade. I would have probably just held the 101 until either the rookie draft comes or mid-season, because once Bijan has a big game, you can probably sell him for even more. You could have sold it for probably Kyler plus one of the rookie wide receivers in this draft. But I can at least understand it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll piggyback onto that. Because you kind of have to know, first of all, not just the market, but you also have to know your league as well. So we don't have the context and all of that. The one that went down in this league, it makes total sense to move Kyler for Bijan because that team is contending. So you need Bijan for that. But just a couple other, peripheral things. It's kind of I kind of view it as a logical fallacy when you are tanking to deliberately go after the players that are going to help you tank more, and by extension, not drafting running backs, because almost never, I mean, you're going to have injuries, but at the same time, running backs are always valuable. The contenders always come knocking. So I'm never, ever afraid to just pull the trigger on a 101, even if I'm not competing and it's for a running back. I'm just not afraid to do that. And the final piece is that, if you're at the 101 and you are somebody that's just like, you know what, I really just don't want to take Bijan. Mm-hmm. Well, then you should be trading out of that, because that's what the market dictates. That's everybody's gunning for Bijan at 101. So if you just want to take Bryce, you should be trading back. And if you can't get out, you can't get Bryce, I understand pivoting to Kyler as an acceptable way, because you're going to be able to hold, maybe just a little more surplus value, a little more of a known commodity with Kyler. You maybe see how the rest of the offseason unfolds. So I think there's reasons to do it. And I don't mean to, dump on Kyler. It's just, it's Bijan.
Yeah. I think there's multiple angles here. Touched on a lot of them. So my biggest, looking at it, and to talk about it in context of the league that we're in, where we saw this happen, I think it makes sense for both sides. The only issue, and I think it's a credit to Blooms who made the trade. Shout out Blooms on it. I think he, I don't know if he listened to it or like he just saw an opportunity to get Bijan, but I think it illustrates the point of, if you're a Kyler holder and you want to get out, now's the time, because the perception once they get rid of Nuke, as it gets longer, as you start to hold them more and more, guys are going to try to wait you out. And I don't think that this kind of offer is going to be out there. So if you want to get out on Kyler and the 101 is available, you immediately take it, because right now, how I view it, we're in March. It's March 2nd. It's March 2nd. I think the rookie 101 is going to accrue value as we move closer and closer to this season. Bijan is an ascending asset to me. Kyler is not. I think his value is just going to continue to go lower and lower. And I understand from the tanking standpoint, but that's I don't like pigeonholing myself this early. That would be my counter to that. I don't want to pigeonhole myself to one way or another. I like to stay fluid. I don't know what I'm going to do. But quick shout out to Kyler's agent, because remember how everybody was like giving Kyler Murray's agent they were giving him shit. Like, they don't have to give you this deal now. They could wait, yada, yada, yada. But in terms of a player, man, kudos to Kyler's agent, because what would his situation be looking like right now if he tore his ACL and he didn't have this extension already locked up?
They could be drafting Bryce at 3.
He could be Baker Mayfield. He could be in the Baker Mayfield slot, like just kind of in limbo. Yeah. I mean, I think he's better than Baker for what it's worth, but yeah, no, I don't think this is the end of it. I just think the Kyler sell window, if Kyler's getting you the rookie 101 right now, you should smash that 10 times out of 10, even in Superflex.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so let's do Herbert. I like the Herbert trades next. I think this is going to be kind of like I think he's going to be a hotly targeted guy for this season. And let's start with the one that you saw first, AJ. It's going to be the 103, 108.
201.
201, 406 for Herbert, and the 308.
Yep.
So, yeah, you guys take the floor on that. I'm going to just type it out so everybody can kind of like follow along.
You want to take a lead on that?
I'll go for it. All right. So the way I break this down is essentially Herbert for 1 early first, and 2 late firsts. That's pretty much how I'm breaking this trade down. The 406 and the 308 are pretty negligible. For me, if I was a Herbert owner, that's not enough. I would take the Herbert side.
So the caveat here is, AJ, you said this league is transitioning to Superflex next year.
Yes.
So you're taking it
24. Yeah.
So you're kind of taking an early hit there, but just for context for that trade specifically, I suppose. But let's just assume Superflex, because that's typically what we're all in and what probably anyone who watches us is in.
So I think even factoring in the 1 year delay on the Superflex implementation, Herbert's value is still going to be or basically the same as the Superflex league, because people that acquire him are probably looking to have him as one of their starting 2 quarterbacks within the next year. So it's kind of like rookie picks. They accrue that year before, kind of same kind of deal. So I want the Herbert side. I think Herbert is probably a top 6 or 7 quarterback fantasy wise with the Kellen Moore edition. Like, that's his floor, is probably 6 or 7. And I think he has just about as much ceiling as any quarterback in the league. He could be QB1. So
I mean, as we're seeing with Kyler, even with the torn ACL, he's still a 2nd-round startup pick. Herbert could have a disastrous season, and I still think he's probably a 1st-round startup. At worst, he's not going past the 204 in a super flex. And that's like he has a Carson Wentz level year. If we attach names to the picks, the 103, let's assume Bijan and Bryce Young go. Let's say it's Richardson. Let's say it's Richardson, and let's say Levis falls. Richardson, Levis, running back at the 201, the 406, who cares? 308, we could scratch those off.
So let's say 201 is like Zach Charbonnet or Sean Tucker or Kendrick Miller, one of those 3.
Yeah. Insert your RB3. Let's say the worst case scenarios are your RB3 of there. Let's say it's Richardson. I mean, I guess the worst case scenario would be like Stroud and Richardson in combo, and then like a Charbonnet there, or maybe even a wide receiver that falls there. Maybe, I don't know, Quince. Maybe a wide receiver falls. That would probably be the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I'm still taking.
Got shout outs to the Fantasy Flojo. Make sure you go follow him on YouTube. That is my shot caller brother. So he's saying let's call it CJ Stroud, who is his QB1 in this draft. That's up for debate, obviously. Top 3 wide receiver and trash. He switched up. He said, sorry, 201 still a decent player. He says the Herbert side, and I think we definitely agree with that. In terms of that trade, you're basically trading what we hope turns into Herbert versus for the finished product. I mean, there's no doubt. Like, let's say if Herbert was in this draft, he'd be the 101, even over Bijan. So I think that's a scoop. That's a trade that you probably make 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get frustrated with the Herbert hype because it, like the Chargers, they get hyped up every year, and we just haven't had it. I'd like to hope that it'll be Kellen Moore coming to town that finally unlocks him. They've been pretty conservative from a play calling standpoint, but also aggressive in the wrong ways at the same time. It doesn't sit right. So getting somebody in there that can maybe unlock him, but this is it. Like, if it doesn't happen this year, I'm probably not waiting. So I do understand this particular team was trying to offload pieces and ended up contending last year. And so he's like, all right, please let me out. So
Yeah.
I probably would have preferred, if for the package side, to pivot one of those the 108 into 24 first, just to see if I could re-roll higher on that. But it's the package is not without precedent.
So I think JL's probably the highest on Herbert here. I consider myself kind of Herbert agnostic. I'm kind of like in the middle. I would say you're Herbert conservative compared to the market.
That's true.
I think that's a fair statement, right? You're Herbert conservative.
Yeah.
So this next trade, I think, is the interesting one that I'd like to hear your thoughts on. It's the rookie 101 and 103 for Herbert. Shout out to our boy JMM on this one.
Yeah.
Go for it, AJ.
Look, man. I mean, it's Bijan and basically your choice of, whichever quarterback falls. That's steep.
Yeah.
Like that's a haul. That's the haul that you were hoping to have if you were futuristically trading out of 22 to get to 2023 so that you could be sitting in this location. I don't know how many people actually exist out there that have that situation right now. So it's very rare air. And because I am Herbert conservative, if I can get probably the most hyped running back to come out of college in the last 5-6 years, and I can get a quarterback to soften the blow, what am I going to do?
Quickly want to answer Flojo's questions. He's saying AR has Malik Willis vibes. I know he's your guy, but CJ, he's a big CJ Stroud guy. That's his number one quarterback in this draft. And I don't have anything really against Stroud per se. Part of my Richardson, I just think, it's hard to pass, as we saw with Fields. Look, we don't measure completion percentage in fantasy. That's not a stat that we hold. And we saw with Fields having a really bad completion percentage year, how valuable he was in fantasy. He's a round one startup pick right now. I think Richardson's going to go to a better situation than the Bears. I think he's going to have better weapons to throw to. And I think he is that. What is it? What did Mike Lou call it? The Konami code? He has the Konami code when playing the quarterback position. And it's an upside play. I think he has, in terms of fantasy. Now, if I was starting my own NFL team, I'm not going with Anthony Richardson. That's a whole different conversation. But in terms of just where the market is on Richardson and what I could get for him and what his potential to grow is, that's different for me. Because with Bryce Young, he's being priced as a late second right now, early third. Based on what I think he's going to be, I don't know how much he's going to grow from that. Same thing kind of with CJ Stroud. He's kind of going in that same area. I don't know how much he's going to grow from that, from rookie year to sophomore year. Landing spots can make a different, can change things, but yeah, that's about where I'm at on that. I don't think Richardson's Malik Willis by any stretch.
Okay, I'm going to chime in. First and foremost, I feel personally offended that Anthony Richardson was comped to Justin Fields, because they were not. They were on two different. They're not even playing the same damn sport when you're talking about.
I didn't comp. Whoa. I said in terms of what a running quarterback can do with a poor completion percentage.
In college, Justin Fields was nearly 70%.
Yeah, he had. Who was he throwing to? A pro receiver.
The same guy Stroud is throwing to.
The same guy Stroud is throwing to.
Pro receiver. Yeah, pro receiver room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's not like we're talking about Anthony Richardson played at Memphis or Liberty or anything. He played in the SEC at Florida. Okay,
That Florida team was terrible.
He's not
They
throwing
were
to
scrubs.
They're
were
not scrubs though. They're still not scrubs.
He's throwing to 3 first-round receivers.
Yeah,
He's throwing to 3 first-round receivers.
They're still not scrubs.
They're not first-round receivers.
No, I'm not saying they are. They are, but I mean, we've seen lots of other quarterbacks that have come from either SEC programs or anything like that, and they're not completing 50% of their balls. Okay, Dak Prescott, who did he play with at Mississippi State?
I don't know.
Exactly.
But I'm not comparing him to Dak. I'm saying in terms of correlating completion percentage to fantasy points.
Yeah, but that's comping them from a prospect standpoint, though. So that is offensive, in my opinion.
I didn't compare that. You're misconstruing my message. I'm saying completion percentage isn't the end all be all. I also said Fields is in the shittier situation. Richardson's going to be in a better situation. If you're telling me to be clear, Fields versus Richardson, I'm taking Fields 10 out of 10, and I feel attacked that my Fields bona fides are being questioned because no one's bigger on Justin Fields than this guy who told you to take him over Trevor Lawrence.
I know.
But he's asked, Fantasy Flojo wants to know, is Bijan our 101 in Superflex Dynasty? Yeah. In terms of where the market is on him, unequivocally, and on my own evaluation, yes, he's my 101 right now.
I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah. It's pretty clear. And
even if he's not your favorite guy, you use that as the pivot point. That's where it is.
Yeah, you're just gonna get you're gonna get the world for him. Fields a better prospect by a bunch, 100%. I think Fields would be my number one quarterback in this group over Bryce Young.
So now to comment on the 101 and 103 or Herbert.
Yeah, let's get back to the truth.
Let's get back on cue here.
Because I almost jumped off my balcony because you said I said Richardson was better than Fields. I almost ended everything right now.
No, not better. You comped it, and like it felt like you were saying they were in similar tiers.
It could have been any quarterback that can't complete a pass and runs the ball primarily.
Okay, all right. I'll take that. All right. So. I would I'm the pro Herbert probably guy on the highest on Herbert.
Here you are.
Between us three. I wouldn't say that it's I'm taking Herbert, but I would say just deal is fair. I would say roster contingent. If you have a need, like let's say by happenstance, you have like a Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert quarterback room, and then maybe like a Kirk Cousins as your third. I could see, and you have a need at running back, I could see dealing Herbert and getting Bijan and resupplying with whoever your QB2 is at the 103. And I think also if you were a team that was bad in 2022 and you want to insulate your value, then you can go Herbert.
Yeah. I think you could do worse, but I'm always a value guy, and I think there's better value for 101 and 103. I better be getting fucking Mahomes back.
If for nothing else, if Herbert hits like you think he's going to, this is the price next year, and there's no Bijan in next year. I mean, you got Drake May and you got
Caleb
Williams, but there's no Bijan. So
yeah, but here's where I don't like it. I don't like it for the Herbert receiving side. You could take Bijan and then just tear down. You could cascade from the 103.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about pieces that, you do
anything you want.
Yeah. I don't. It's a tough one. So in comparing it to the other trade that we looked at, the other trade, I would do that 10 times out of 10 in a vacuum, in a closet, I don't care where I am. I'm making it 10 times out of 10. This one, I'm trying to think of a roster where I kind of like would slam dunk it, and I don't have one. Yeah, this is a tough sell for me. I think I definitely want the pick side.
Okay, so I'm going to make two comments. One, I think people forget Justin Herbert's still only 24.
Mm-hmm.
And he's super young. So
and he hasn't had a great conducive offensive system for 3 straight years.
And he hasn't had one for 3 straight years, and he's been a QB1 as a starter from a points per game stat all 3 seasons. So that's one. 2, although there is no Bijan for 2024,
not yet.
You could do yeah, right. Raheem Sanders might get some love. I told you guys I think he's in my tier prospect of Breece Hall in the league chat. And I was very high on Breece Hall. I was very high on him before he came into his junior year. And then at the end of his junior year, I wondered about him a little bit. And then right before the rookie draft, I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's amazing. And I had him, and I said back then I would take him over any running back between the 21, 22, and 23 class, not named Bijan. And that was a little bit spicy. I was a little spicy at that time.
Was it? I don't think you got pushback on it.
I think from consensus, I think among us, we were kind of already there, but a lot of people were shocked because of that 22 class that was poo-pooed pretty hard.
You know what I think that was? I think that was
before Kenneth Walker.
That was a little
right?
bit of there was Kenneth Walker in that draft.
Oh, I think that was before Kenneth
Walker
because he wasn't on the radar until he had that incredible season.
What I think it was is a little bit of what we're seeing with the quarterbacks in this draft, to make it kind of an analogy where like there's some good quarterbacks here, but we know who the 101 is next year. Yes. So there's a little bit of that damper, and there's a chance to scoop up value. I think that's kind of what we saw happen with Breece, where it's like, oh, we should just wait for Bijan, and it's like, oh, this guy runs a 4.39 and can catch the ball.
Yeah, and he's 220 as well. So, but to go back, there is Drake May and there is Caleb Williams. So I think just as much as in terms of value to tier down, if you're not necessarily tanking, but just in a rebuild mode, and you have one of those top 2 picks, you're going to get just as much value for either one of them as you will for Bijan, in my opinion.
Fun fact, I'm not in love with Drake May.
That's good. I'm not saying you have to be. I think Caleb Williams is clearly a tier above.
Yeah. It was a non sequitur. It had nothing. I'm just wanted to throw that out there into the universe. Not crazy about Drake May. Flojo's asking, is Bijan the next Saquon?
No.
I think Bijan's going to be Saquon without the ACL tear.
I don't think there is another Saquon, and I think I felt that way long before he came to the Giants.
Okay, Giants fan.
So I've comped Bijan more to CMC than I have Saquon. And I see a little bit of CMC. I see a little bit of Dalvin Cook in Bijan. Bijan is the way he meanders through traffic is what makes him special. When he's running the ball, because he's also a phenomenal receiver.
Yeah.
I think
I think Bijan is going to end up in a better situation than Saquon did with the Giants. So just answering Flojo, I think he will be better, but it's not like them individually stacked next to each other. I don't think there's much difference. I just don't think Bijan's going to end up in the dumpster fire that was the Giants for Saquon's first 3 years.
I could see that. But yeah, but if I'm looking at it, so the next Saquon, I'm not calling him Saquon from an NFL player standpoint, maybe from a fantasy aspect, that
Mhm.
rookie year potentially. But I agree. I don't think he'll end up in as bad a situation. And the other thing I think with Bijan, I think he's a little more secure in terms of the running, because the one knock I've always had on Saquon, and I'm as big a Saquon fan as anybody out there, is that he is a little bouncy.
Mhm.
He wouldn't necessarily always take that tough 3 or 4 yards
He
in
doesn't
his
run
first
through a
game.
motherfucker enough.
Although this year, when he that first game when he had Tennessee, when we played Tennessee and they did the 2 point conversion, and I saw him truck that dude to get the 2 point conversion, I was like, okay, we might have something here. Maybe Dable gave him something, you know.
Maybe
Yeah.
it was definitely coached into him for sure.
Yeah,
The ACL tear made him slow down, and yeah, he was a lot more disciplined. wasn't as bouncy this year, but as like the hype for Bijan absolutely matches the hype for Saquon when they came out. Like people have been singing these guys' praises from the minute they stepped on a football field. It's
oh yeah,
that high,
yeah.
100%.
Well, you guys know the
The
stat of
correct
what
correct
Bijan
answer.
worked for in high school, right? His yards per carry in high school, his senior year,
For Bijan,
No, what is it?
it was like 20 yards per carry.
oh my god,
It was ridiculous.
that's stupid.
The correct answer for Saquon running over motherfuckers is 2 words: contract year.
Yeah,
So, all right. So we got our next trade. It's the most recent one that was posted in our league. Shout out to Boogers Burner. That's our guy. Let's get into it. This is a doozy that I don't know how to take. But we know Booger. Booger is a big swinger.
Yes.
He takes big swings, man. There is no little trade with this guy. And by what do I mean by that? I mean he traded two drafts worth of picks in our inaugural startup for Calvin
in
Ridley.
the startup. Yep.
In the startup. I remember watching.
And he won this year.
I had forgotten about
He
that.
beat me.
Yeah.
That Jonathan Taylor trade still makes me angry. But anyways, it is our boy Booger receiving Justin Jefferson while sending out Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, and a 24 first.
I'll jump
I
in.
about died.
That's steep.
Yeah.
I don't want to slam Booger here. I can understand it from the standpoint of Eckler and Sanders are extremely volatile. They could.
The cliff is within sight. The cliff,
right? The cliff is within sight for both of them, and they could just be completely non-valuable assets come next year. And Justin Jefferson, he could tear his ACL tomorrow, and he's still probably a first-round startup pick, if not a very early second.
Yeah.
So I can get that. But Reek and a 24 first for Jefferson, if we just look at it from that standpoint, it starts to get interesting, especially if that 24 first has any shot at being top 6.
Yeah, I think we could assume. Let's assume it's his. I don't know if it is or isn't, but if it is his, I'd assume he's a contender. Because I don't know why. Well, would you make this into a contender? Let's call it a 5 to 8. Let's say it falls 5 to 8.
Okay. It's close. It's close. I don't know. I think I'd still take the package side, but It would be close.
This is a.
Because if
I think
Reek
Jefferson has turned into the hardest dynasty piece to trade. I think he's just turned into the hardest dynasty piece to trade. Like I was even trying to look in our league, and like I was looking at I think it was JMM's team, and I was looking like Amon-Ra and Devontae. And the problem is Jefferson outscored both of them by 100 points. So I can, it's just so hard to match values for Jefferson. He is the hardest player to trade. Matching it up here, I mean, I don't know, how many points is he ahead of Tyreek?
He wasn't a lot.
No. Because Tyreek was 2, right? He finished second.
Yeah. Tyreek was high. Oh, wow. It's really close. They're nearly equivalent.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the elephant in the room, is that you see Tyreek and you see 28 years old and you're worried. But Tyreek has been one of those players that has not only been, for the most part, pretty durable. He had that the 1 year we broke his collarbone. And he's also not a player that, is getting beat up a lot. Like, he doesn't play a super physical game. He avoids a lot of contact. He's, historically speaking, when players play like that, eventually you lose the step, but it usually is not happening before your 30th birthday. I think that it's disingenuous to lump Tyreek in the same cliff conversation as Eckler and Sanders, because I think he's just got a lot of time left. I mean, at what point can you look at what he did this year and say, oh, the cliff's coming? Like, when? He scored one less touchdown than his number 2 wide receiver and put up 1,600 yards. I forget which.
Yeah. Tyreek he's a fantasy Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
He might be on a Hall of Fame track in general. And he produces this production without, crazy touchdown numbers as well. Yep. So the issue though is he's closer to the end than he is the beginning here. And it really just comes down to age, because the production's phenomenal. The only quibble that you might have with Tyreek is that he's kind of prone to blow up weeks where, even Jefferson kind of had some duds this year. But I would say overall Jefferson's a little more consistent. It really comes down to this is a big swing, man. I don't know if
you ran this in like 1,000 simulations and I have 2 different teams, like I'm either competing or I'm not, I would far see myself taking the package, because there's so much value concentrated in that. So I could just dump Jefferson, my 1 share, and then I can go compete. Like, I would be doing that all the time. But it also makes sense the other way around too, because if you are just blowing it up, but then you wouldn't be throwing your first in there, because if you're going to be blowing it up and we know it's yours. So it's just like, if it was someone else's first that, it's going to be late, I mean, fine, that's fine. But I wouldn't blow all that up for Jefferson.
So here's my question for you. Let's say you guys have Jefferson, right? You guys are holding Jefferson.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you could get a better package than that for Justin Jefferson?
No. That would be the kind of package. That would be the kind of package as a manager. I like making these types of trades. This kind of deal where I can turn one asset into essentially making me almost an instant contender.
Yeah.
I wonder what the percentage of.
I think you could get a younger package though.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. Is I wonder what the percentage of ownership is with Justin Jefferson being on contenders versus rebuilders and retoolers and stuff. Because at least in my experience, usually Justin Jefferson's on a team that is still building, and so it's like they're looking for that mammoth piece to bring in youth. And that's what I think doesn't exist anymore, because people will offer this all day, but the guys that are holding Justin Jefferson right now are not interested in a package like this. They don't want that home run swing. And I might be off on that, but that's just something I'm reading.
This feels similar to in our league where when I shipped it all for Mahomes and everybody kind of freaked out a little bit. And I was like, I just think Mahomes is going to hold better value than these pieces. Like, I was set up to win now. It didn't work. I got a parachute because Lamar got hurt. And I think Jefferson holds better than the pieces. So here's what I'm seeing here. You hold Jefferson here. I think in a year's time, you can get a better package, a younger package. Maybe better is not the right word, but a younger package. So even if you were rebuilding, say you sent out the package for Jefferson, I think you could redirect Jefferson to get better younger pieces. So if that's the move, then I kind of like it better for the Jefferson side. But in terms of like winning, in terms of cashing this year, man, that's really hard to beat Reek, Eckler, Sanders, and wherever the first is.
Yeah, I mean, 1,600 and double-digit touchdowns is just a hard watermark to bank on for anybody.
Agreed. And I still think you have 2 years of elite production left at minimum for Reek.
On Reek?
Yeah, 2 years of elite. And more likely than not, I still think he's going to be the kind of wide receiver that tends to age a little well, kind of like a Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson was still getting a lot of phone calls at 35.
I think Jackson can still produce right now. I think he just
can't stay healthy.
Yeah. But Tyreek is that kind of athlete.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I think he's 34, 35, and people, NFL teams are still going to be giving him a call.
That's a hell of a trade, man. I'm going back and forth on it. I guess I'd close my eyes and say the package side, but I'd have to know Booger's roster. I don't think he does that without like he's right. If you're consolidating, who better to consolidate into than Jefferson? But that's a hell of a one. If anyone has any thoughts on that one's kind of crazy. I do think I want to talk about your trade. JL, I know we're probably running out of time with you.
I'm over. I'm not worried anymore.
All right, so we'll quickly get through these last couple ones, and then we'll try to call this. It's new territory for me and AJ to be under. I don't think we've done anything under 2 hours. So
we were born rambling, man.
All right, but I do want to get to the trade that you made with Booger. I actually think that's a very relevant trade for this offseason, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Since it's your trade, do you want to go first, second, or last on it?
Sure. No, I can go first. So a little bit of context. I'm basically, I wouldn't say it's like true win now, like where I'm just totally.
Your win now. You don't have your 24 first.
Right. But I do have some outs here and there. Yeah. But yeah. So I need to patch up my quarterback position. I've been riding dirty for a little too long. Just need something a little more consistent on the back end. And I had quite a bit of depth at running back. Kamara was the first. That was the first pick in this startup. I've held Kamara the entire time. He's been really good, but with the suspension coming down, and I have some depth right now. I feel like at the end of the day, I'd rather just be holding Geno after this year, and I'll sacrifice Sam Howell on the altar of all things Seahawk.
For me, just unbiased. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about Kyler versus the 101. I think Geno is an ascending asset over this offseason. I think he will just accrue value. Are we talking about like he's going to become a third round startup? No. But I think he could get up to sixth or fifth round. I mean, hell, Daniel Jones is now going in the fourth round of startups, which blows my mind a little bit. But I think Geno will accrue value, and Kamara, you already touched on the suspension, not to mention his age. He does have some miles here. I see him as a declining asset. I think in our startup, he went in the 10th round. I don't know if he's that low in value, but that's probably an outlier situation. But I think it's a smart move given the context of your team. I hate it for my contending chances, but I think it was a very, very smart move. Geno is an ascending asset. Kamara is not. And then Sam Howell, I don't think he starts week 1 for Washington. So that's kind of let that be someone else's problem.
I think I have a little bit of worries with Seattle potentially taking a quarterback. I don't think they will, but they've been talking about it a little more. I think they have to. That's probably some posturing and some smoke screening there, just in case there's quarterbacks that fall. If there's a team that really likes Will Levis or maybe Anthony Richardson, although I have a spicy take on that. In my opinion, I do not think Anthony Richardson is a top 15 pick.
Wow.
I don't.
We're gonna throw that. We got to create a spicy board because that's going on there.
I know JT, you're convinced that he will go. He's not falling past 12.
Yeah, no, I think he's a top 15 pick for sure.
I don't think he's a top 15 pick. I think he's going to fall. I do think he may fall into a range where the Giants consider trading up for him, potentially, if they don't get anything worked out with Daniel Jones. But the Seahawks, they're at 5, right? They're at 5 from the Broncos pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
They got to be able to pretend like they are eyeing quarterbacks in case somebody like the Falcons or the Panthers or even potentially the Commanders want to come up from that spot and make a deal. So I think Geno is their guy. I think that's what Pete wants to do. He's got to be able to hold. He wants to be able to. He wants to field a competitive team. He's not trying to rebuild right now. So it's a good deal. I think I would take the Geno side, but I do think Sam Howell starts week 1.
Wow. I love
I should be upping my price on my Sam Howell share. Got it.
I
think my 60% ownership is down to 55 now.
I don't see it, man. Okay, but even if he starts, he's a QB3.
Probably. I'm not going to say – I'm not a big Sam Howell guy, but I do think he starts. I don't think the Commanders – okay, so I don't think they will take Anthony Richardson. So I think he's going past that.
You don't think Washington would take him?
I think they'll let him fall.
Interesting.
Because Rivera is trying to save his job.
No, he's done. I think he knows he's done.
I don't think maybe he knows he's done. I think Bieniemy is the head coach in waiting.
Yeah.
But at minimum, he's trying to do what he can to maybe delay that. Or
I guess with that defense, you could kind of convince yourself. Okay. All right. I'll follow. I'll play along.
So, I mean, they franchised Daron Payne. So they're trying to keep – I thought they were going to let him walk.
Right.
They franchised him. So he's pretty much –
trade him.
They can trade him, but nobody's going to I don't think anybody's going to send a first-round pick for him.
No.
So, plus give him whatever he's going to command contract-wise. He's not like as good as DeForest Buckner or who else was the other one that got traded? I'm forgetting at the moment.
Snacks.
Was it Leonard Williams?
Yeah, Leonard Williams got traded at the deadline.
Right, he got traded. He's probably closer to a Leonard Williams type.
Yeah, Payne is more of a true nose. He's not really
he's not really a pass rusher.
They also have a lot invested in the D line, so it was kind of a surprise.
Yes.
You have Jonathan Allen they extended, and then they have Chase Young, who they're going to have to extend. That's a lot. That's a lot there. But yeah.
Yep.
Surprise.
So I think they're going to go for it. I think Rivera will feel good about Sam Howell having already been not necessarily in the system, but in the building. And then you're going to have he's going to want to run the heck out of the ball with Gibson and Brian Robinson.
Counter. He already has CMC Jr. in Antonio Gibson. Why wouldn't he take Cam Newton Jr.?
Well, I don't think he's that level of prospect.
Oh, man. Well, clearly not, Mr. Justin Fields.
Yeah.
But just I think the timing is relevant for this trade as well, because this is not a super comfy deal. It doesn't feel good that I'm trading for Geno while the Seahawks are actively talking about being in the top 5 for the first time isn't that the first time in Pete's coaching career with the Seahawks? I don't think they've been up here.
Yeah, they've never picked that up. They've never picked that up. They've gone to great lengths to remind us of that at every turn.
We've never been here.
Yeah, they're like, well, we're not usually up here. I don't think we've ever picked up here in my time.
The air smells different.
They might as well just say thanks, Russ. That's what they should say.
But yeah, I view it kind of as a hedge, because isn't the franchise deadline Tuesday? They've got a few more days to roll out to offer the franchise tag. That's always in their back pocket, so they can always do that if they don't work out a deal with Geno. So that's something I'm considering. And even if they do take a quarterback, we've already talked about they're probably not getting Bryce Young if they even would want him. And aside from Bryce Young, I think everybody else has a little bit of time to sit behind Geno. So even if it would have been nice to wait for that and then them take a quarterback, but I couldn't take that chance, because then I would have pounced and be like, all right, he's starting for a year and a half. I got this. Yeah. But I felt good about it.
I do want to point out with the whole Seattle hubris about never picking up there, they have never picked up there because they sent that pick for Jamal Adams.
I was gonna say.
Oh yeah, shit.
just want them to slow their rolls a little bit there. Yeah. You got the gift of the Russ trade, but it basically evens out for what you did for Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
Never forget. But yeah, I think they're more of a Hendon Hooker landing spot. That's more part of their DNA. I don't think that they want to spend. I think there's too many good edge rushers at the top there that Pete's gonna probably nerdgasm for there. They could be a Jalen Carter landing spot now with the cloud kind of surrounding him. He might be this draft's Laramie Tunsil a little bit, although I do want to preface with Laramie Tunsil smoked out of a gas mask, drag racing that results in the death of your teammate. Probably a little that should be judged a little differently. But in terms of a draft slide, it sure looks like that's what's being set up here. I don't see them taking a quarterback high, and I think you're pretty safe there with Geno. And even if and let's say even in that scenario that happens, I think Geno's done enough that he would get a job elsewhere.
Probably, yeah.
Fun fact, the guy was the QB5 this year. And I have been screaming to everybody, if you have a quarterback like Geno Smith, Daniel Dimes, this or that, you should probably sell them because it was a suppressed quarterback year. It's probably the worst quarterback year we've seen in a long time. But let's say he regresses. Do any of us think he's going to be worse than a QB2? I don't. I think he's going to be just fine. I think he'll be serviceable. He has DK Metcalf, he has Tyler Lockett, and he has an offense that works.
They could add to that too. But the only thing I would push back on is you had said we view Geno as an ascending asset. I don't know how much more ascending he has to do. He's in new air now because of his situation and because we've already saw. I'm not going to be banking on a QB5 finish.
No, hell no. I see
So-
QB 16. QB 16 is my
Right.
My
And so
projection.
it's hard to call that, an ascending asset, but it's like, late bloomer.
Oh, I'm talking about in terms of the offseason. In terms of the offseason, I think.
Okay, just somebody now on the radar that wasn't before.
Yeah,
I kind of
I'm saying in
kind of
terms
lump
the
him
offseason.
into like when Tannehill kind of became a thing in Tennessee. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page there. I don't mean ascending in terms of years. I mean from March to August.
Okay.
I think Geno's. It may not be like a straight shot up, but it'll be like a little rise over run there,
Blip.
a little bit. And I think Kamara, the cliff, where he's already over the cliff. He's hanging on the ledge. So I think the only thing that helps a Kamara market is if he gets traded to Denver, which I don't think that can happen. Shout out to Ben, Fantasy Shot Callers brethren, coming in again. Make sure you guys go follow Fantasy Shot Callers on YouTube. We're going to have a lot more content coming out there, but he has the Jamal Adams, the draft pick GOAT. Turned into Garrett Wilson and Elijah Vera Tucker. That's a big win.
Pretty wild.
I think we got one last trade. I think it's another one of yours, Schlag. No, let's do JL's. And to me, this is probably the biggest steal that we're looking at.
Dun,
I'm surprised.
dun. I forgot which one this is, though. You just said it's the biggest steal, and you said it's.
I think it's the biggest steal. I think it's the biggest steal.
No, the Herbert one is bigger.
Yeah.
You think so?
Oh yeah, this one's man.
This
I think what I said in chat was doesn't matter for that price ticket.
Yeah,
This is like sending the 1201, the 1601, and the 1602 for, I don't know, the 512, the 601. It's a pretty gnarly steal in my opinion.
Yeah.
And like I don't like Mac Jones, but I like Bill O'Brien. Much like you can not like a running back, but I love his O-line. So here I think it's hard to envision this as a loss in any way, shape, or form. But definitely Mac Jones side here. Anytime you could scoop let's call him a QB2. He's gonna put up numbers. We saw when he had an actual offensive coordinator, he put up a quarterback 18 season. I think that matters. I think people really are not understanding that this guy had a defensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator for his offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Yeah. And
Schlag can illuminate us on how good of an offensive play caller Joe Judge is. And I think we all know that Matt Patricia's rocket science degree did not translate to offensive play calling.
No, did not.
Oh yeah. No, and I feel good about it. I
You
think
should.
there is some risk. That I've heard some rumors that New England likes Bailey Zappi. I'm not sure how much that's really an actual deal, or if that's just media buzz, just trying to generate headlines in February, March of the NFL season. It's dead area. But I'm banking on, like you said, Bill O'Brien. I also think that the Patriots are going to trade for a wide receiver. There was a beat blurb that came out today that Hopkins and Brandon Cooks are two of their top targets. So I think they're already.
Good luck on Nuke.
Huh?
Good luck on Nuke. That ain't happening.
No way.
I mentioned that in the league chat. I was like, there is no way. I would really foresee a Bob and Nuke reunion. No.
No.
The guy I do think that could really go there because the Patriots do have a surprising amount of cap space is Mike Evans.
Yep. You mentioned it, and like I immediately was like, yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
It also makes sense specifically for the scheme because Mac Jones wasn't all that great throwing the ball downfield. Not even just because he didn't have anybody to throw to, but like some of his throws, like it's not that he has a bad arm, but he just didn't really have the greatest accuracy. He lofted a lot of them, getting a skyscraper to bring those down. And Bill O'Brien's going to want to be vertical. That's what he's attack every inch of grass. He's not going to treat Mac Jones like, a check down Charlie. You can even just like look across these four assets and say, okay, Mac Jones, what quarterback am I finding at the 205, 303, or 305?
The only quarterback maybe is Hooker. Maybe Hooker.
And he's not going to be a starter. So, end of story. I'm not the biggest Mac Jones fan right now. I don't have any shares left. But if somebody offered me that, I'd take it.
Yeah, I'd take a free Mac Jones. Thanks.
Why
would the Patriots even entertain Nuke when Keenan Allen might get cut?
I don't think Keenan Allen's getting cut. It's just his cap number is exorbitant right now, and they need to restructure him and hem him up because you're not having your Justin Herbert season if you don't have Keenan Allen.
I don't know, man.
They don't draft Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Oh, that's not what they need, though. They need speed. You want to get the guy that might run a 4.5? Like,
I'm just saying the Chargers craziness can't be ruled out here, man.
Yeah, the reason KA is the one is because if you look at the contracts that they've handed out, they really struck out on what's his name? Was it J.C. Jackson?
Yeah, that might be one of the worst. If they can't figure it out, that's one of the worst free agent signings in. It looks like it should be on the Washington Redskins is what it should look like.
Yeah, he may never play again.
That's one of those. We paid how much for this guy?
Yeah, he wasn't playing well to begin with, and then that injury that he suffered, he may never play football again.
He was playing like a white cornerback.
Wait, I didn't hear that he wasn't going to play again. I thought that was Byron Jones that has
who has not retired. Byron Jones has not retired.
Yeah, but the J.C. Jackson injury is
not good. Not good.
No, it was. I want to say he ruptured his patellar tendon, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my god!
It might be the worst cornerback signing since Nnamdi Asomugha.
Yes. Yes. It is.
Free advice whenever you hear patella tendon.
Yeah. So it is. It was a ruptured patella tendon for J.C. Jackson. That's why I'm saying that.
That's the Victor Cruz injury, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the Victor Cruz injury.
And
there's only
Will
been
Dissly, I think, had it too.
Who?
Will Dissly.
Will Dissly. That was going to say.
Yeah,
that was the other one.
I'm faster than Will Dissly.
Now.
I don't think speed is not a part of that man's game.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if J.C. Jackson I shouldn't say he never plays again. I'm not sure he's ever really the same. And then at that point, he's no longer in the NFL. I got to check
Will Dissly's 40 time to make sure that I'm faster than him.
He runs like a 4.7, man. Or like a 4.8. Really? Yeah.
No, Dissly?
I think I could get that. 4.87. I got that in the bag. That's easy money.
Yeah,
if Ben's still here, please tell the people that a 4.87, I could do that in my sleep.
Specifically for J.C. Jackson, they kind of reduced him down to like a slot role. And if you don't have lateral agility and burst in the slot, you're toast. So I don't know if he can play full time outside, but like that's a non-starter for Brandon Staley defense.
Yeah,
probably not great.
So the reason that KA was being floated was because you just look at the structure of all their contracts and like their big money because they're $20 million over the cap. It's not like they're just barely over the cap. They got to make some moves, and the only one that has a cap saving hit that's significant enough is Keenan Allen, and the other one is Khalil Mack. But I don't think you're trading Khalil Mack or moving Khalil Mack because you just
gave
traded
up a lot.
for him.
Yeah, they just gave up a lot for him.
And yeah, they just gave up a lot for him. So I don't think they're moving him. So that's the reason.
They don't have any other depth. It's literally just Mack and Bosa on the edge.
Yep, that's it.
I know that, like, Cincinnati fans are a little scared about, Brown paying Burrow, but I think more energy needs to be put towards the Spanoses to paying Herbert.
The only thing I'll say
to us, it's a no-brainer. Duh. You draft Justin Herbert, congratulations, you pay him. But what in the Chargers' history shows that they are going to do the right thing?
Well, the right. I mean, they paid Philip.
They won't fire Brandon Staley.
That's another topic, but I mean, that's as much. What's his name? Tom Telesco.
Yeah,
you think so? Telesco's a good GM. I don't have any issue. He's got some solid draft picks. He got Slater. Slater was a good
pick, and so was Herbert. But he did his track record before that was pretty sketchy.
Maybe I know he went on Pat McAfee, and I liked him. So maybe I'm just a little skewed.
He was also not great with contracts either.
Yeah, he paid J.C. Jackson $582.5.
Yeah, I mean that's not even okay. That's one of them, but some of the other ones. If I start listing off like how much he paid other guys,
it's not good.
Lindsley's deal was pretty big, right? The center.
Yeah, but I think at least
he's an all-pro guy.
Yeah, he's an all-pro center. But I mean, they paid Mike Williams $20 million a year.
Yeah,
that's steep.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, maybe it's worth it now, given the wide receiver market, but that was steep at the time.
I didn't agree with it at that time.
Yeah, I didn't agree with it at that time either. They paid Austin Johnson, who's like their interior defensive line guy. I think he's getting like $7.5 million.
I think the Williams deal was a shock. Remember, because I remember when I traded him to you. The whole thing that was suppressing his value was we don't know where he's going to be next year.
Yeah.
We didn't think he'd be attached to Herbert. And then when he was, I was kind of like, fuck.
You have really bad luck trading away wide receivers and then having insane positive QB variance go to the other party, because you traded away Mike Williams, so he got stick to Justin Herbert, and then you traded Cooper Kupp away to me when they traded like
in
a couple days before they traded Stafford.
In the startup.
Yeah, they just
I don't know who I got. I sent him to you for Boyd and someone else, and it wasn't good. I also traded Jamar Chase in our league for Baker Mayfield and Chase Clayton. So I'm happy to still report that's the only Jamar Chase move I made. And you know who got me to make that move? Fucking Ray GQ. Because he was all about Baker. And I didn't have a quarterback. Anyways, I turned it into AJ Brown. I think I did okay.
That'll work.
No one's crying for me. It's okay. I accept where I am in the fantasy realm. But moving on to the next trade, I think this is Schlag's, and I think this is a good one to end on, where these are real trades. These are real trades that could pay off big time. And I think that, that's what I want to do. I want to do real trades that are going to happen, not how do I trade for Patrick Mahomes? Like, yeah, good luck. That's what I got to tell you. You got to send a whole starting lineup for Patrick Mahomes right now. And, right now, Patrick Mahomes for the next 3 years, if you in 6 point, he's probably my 101. in 4-point, he's not my 101. 4-point running quarterbacks mean more. I also think Hurts probably outscores him for the next 2 years, but I'm on an island on that one. But let's get to this one. It's Daniel Jones, Rashad Bateman, 306 for Trey Lance and Calvin Ridley. And Schlag scooped my my number one buy of the offseason, Trey Lance.
It's not Russell Wilson. It's Trey Lance.
It's Trey Lance, not Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson can't run like Trey Lance, and he also doesn't have Kyle Shanahan, but he does have Sean Payton. So the Niners' weapons are better than what Denver has. I think people are forgetting that part with like Russell buzz. I think Russ is going to go back to being hot take. Let's put this on the board. I think Russ will be a QB1 next year. It might be 12, 11, or 10, but I think he will be a QB1 next year.
Okay.
And if you look at Sean Payton's track record, that's kind of the baseline. And I don't think Sean Payton takes this job without thinking he could correct it. So I'll put that on the board. Russell Wilson will finish as a QB1. But trade. Trey Lance is my number one buy.
I mean, I'm pretty oversaturated with Lance shares, so I was not looking to get more. And this is not me sticking my neck out for, Trey Lance versus Brock Purdy. This was just a trade that, the walls are caving in on me in this one, so I kind of need to make some stuff happen. And like, I was talking about making a deal sort of like this in one of the other trades that we had done on here. And this was one of the other packages that I was thinking about getting. And I was just like, all right, I guess I'll just go the other way because I got to lock up things, be more secure in the return that I got. So I get this trade and like all of a sudden, like I start shoving Bateman in there and we've been, super high on Bateman here. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I just throwing Bateman out there like, like a dirty sock? And I came to the realization where I was just like, man, this whole Lamar thing is not going to be, at least for Bateman specifically, there's a chance that Lamar leaves. Even if he doesn't leave, this contract holdout is going to last all summer. Because if they want him around, they've got to nail it out. And that deadline for the franchise tag to be signed is not until the 15th of July, I think. Usually it's somewhere in there. And Bateman's coming back from, is it Lisfranc or is it Jones?
Lisfranc.
Lisfranc? Okay. So, I mean, he's had trouble staying healthy and they just haven't leveled up to that. So it was something in the back of my mind. I think it's fair to call me impartial saying that, I'm not just blinded by the NY on the side of the helmet.
Yeah.
I think Dimes is probably one of the most overrated quarterbacks right now. And I'm trying to sell him anywhere I can. But, trading my future into Ridley and Lance, I mean.
So, yeah, the Bateman part is the only part that I see that could come back and bite you. But, again, ascending asset versus declining asset. I don't think Dimes can get much. I don't think he's going to get much higher than where he is right now. I don't see him running for 700 yards again. And I just think, I think the Giants might let him go, to be honest. And I think that's probably a hot take. I think it's kind of a hot take. I don't know if he'll be the Giants quarterback next year. And, I don't like Daniel Jones not attached to Dayball. I do think that there's regression there. I don't see the Giants making the playoffs again next year. I know Blooms is probably going to drag me for that and being just another hater. But we see this year in and year out in the NFL. It's kind of like 3 teams in, 3 teams out. That's kind of like how the playoffs go, and I really see the Giants as one of those teams. And I just think this again goes to I'm not a Brock Purdy guy. I think Trey Lance is the guy. When the chips were even in the offseason, Brock Purdy, you could go back to the interviews that Brock Purdy did. He's like singing Trey Lance's praises. You know what I mean? He's like, this guy's amazing. He's the best talent I've ever seen. He played in a monsoon, and then he played one quarter. They still invested 3 first-round picks in this guy. He has the best weapon set, even if they do trade Debo, which I think is more of a reality this offseason than last offseason. It just makes too much sense to me. And then with Ridley, you illustrated the problems with Bateman. There is a big difference in age, but Ridley's attached to Trevor Lawrence with Doug Peterson at the controls. Rashad Bateman, while he's still going to be, I think he'll be like 22 this year. Todd Monken seems to be a good OC, at least of what we saw at Georgia, but with no Lamar Jackson, it's a big difference if Tyler Huntley's throwing those passes. So the 306 to me is negligible, but I think you'll see an increase on the value on Trey Lance more than you will Daniel Jones this offseason. And watch, as I say that, the Giants fucking trade for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think we need to hold some reservation on that. Daniel Jones won't accrue a fair amount of value until after free agent, not necessarily free agent, but just the rookie draft and an offseason with trades, because I do think that they are a very, very big contender for Hopkins. I think they would have to.
Can they afford him?
That's what I was going to say. They would have to look and do some cap management there.
We are still paying for the sins of Dave Gettleman.
Kenny Galladay. And Kenny Galladay.
Let me also say this. If they in order to afford him, I believe the Giants have, I think, the second most or third most cap space in the league. I think it's the Bears, then the Falcons, and then the Giants. Oh no, the Raiders have, but effective cap space, it's number 3. It's the Giants. So they would have to sign Daniel Jones to a not necessarily a long-term deal, but a not the franchise tag deal. I don't think they could afford him at $35 million a year and also trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Mm-hmm. So that's not an ideal, or I shouldn't say the most ideal scenario for them. And then they would also have to re-sign Saquon at a fairly reasonable deal to get that done. So that it would take some cap manipulation, but it's possible.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not banking. I don't think that I think the bigger, if they're going to take a big splash, it'll be in the draft. I think that's where they might draft a first rounder. But there's such a dearth there that I just don't see them changing how they play. I think they in order for them to get back to the playoffs, they have to play ugly. I don't think it's not a fantasy offense I'm looking to buy.
Yeah, I think as it pertains to Daniel Jones, he strikes me as the type of quarterback, he's not had the weapons, but he strikes me as the type of quarterback almost like with Baker almost, where it's like where you're going to bring in a number 1 wide receiver. You're going to put him on the line, put him on the X and say, give that guy 8 to 12 a game. And he's going to struggle to do that. I don't think, and that's the other thing. So if it was in a strict, situation where it was like in Cleveland, we traded for this guy, you need to, exercise this option. Otherwise it's not going to work. That's one thing. I don't even think Dable is going to want to make him do that, because if Daniel Jones stays and they do keep him, that's not how they were succeeding. He was succeeding off his legs with
Mhm.
boot action, gimme throws, and making a couple throws over the middle. Like, he's not going to hyper target one of the
Yeah.
most talented wide receivers. That I just don't see that.
Yeah. And also, let's not rule out injury risk. He's a bit of an injury risk as well. But all right, cool. I don't think we have any more questions in the chat. I think we'll call it right here. We made it under 2, AJ. We did it. It only took us 10 tries.
Yep.
Thank you, JL. 10 are in the books. If you guys want us to review anything, you can send it to email jtbetweenyourears@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, like and subscribe here. We'll be here every week. All right. We'll call that a wrap, y'all.
Yep.